back.
Back. Number 30.
30.
Egypt.
Egypt. That's a place.
That's
The end.
the in the last episode we just recorded, but it was published a week ago. Our Egypt experience came up,
Yeah.
and I think this is where we flow into it. We went to Egypt.
22.
Summer of 22.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
hot in the summer in
Hot in
Egypt.
the summer.
Very hot.
And it was, I guess I will say this, for as long as I have been alive, the only thing I can remember was my connection to Egypt. Period. Like, and my parents even said, like, yeah, we have no clue. Like, Tanya was just little and she heard of Egypt and her lights lit up, and that was it. And then I now I can kind of start to explain it because I feel like I have had many lifetimes in Egypt.
Mm.
And because they were so close to heart, meaning like I was open, energetically open in that space. Whenever you're energetically open in a lifetime, I think your essence is able to connect and feel it much more viscerally when you start to remember lifetimes in any one lifetime incarnation or in any one interpretation of self. And so I think the reason why I feel so passionate about Egypt is because like the essence of my soul was the most open during that time. I say during that time. That doesn't actually is not valid, but I will leave it in that for interpretation of human experience.
Yeah.
And so I was called to go there for a long time.
We booked it in 2020.
March of 2020.
Turns out something happened.
Yeah, but I think it happened perfectly because energetically I wasn't ready for Egypt in March of 2020. Actually, early April of 2020.
Yeah, in fact, I was also like, oh, this feels rushed. Might not be the right word, but it felt. I was anxious about that. I was nervous about
what?
About going to Egypt. The first time. No, the second time felt more natural.
Oh yeah.
Which I don't know. But
energetically, I was thinking, I guess innately, I kind of knew that the first time we were going, like, oh, I'm not where I need to be energetically just yet, but I'm being called so deeply to go there that this will be kind of like the dipping your toes in the water situation. And then later I can come back whenever I'm energetically ready. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I thought like this would be good, like, let's touch the space before I'm energetically ready.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the universe went, yeah, there's no need to waste your time and money touching that space. Let's just wait 2 years.
Yep.
And so COVID
came and went.
Came and stayed. And then I guess at that point, it was interesting. What happened is because I actually booked the Egyptian trip in 2020 through a tour agency.
One of those Nile cruises.
Nile cruise. It was it was a whole itinerary.
Yeah, but the Nile cruise was like the poster child of COVID super spreaders.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh.
Yeah, but if the world did not close in March of 2020, we would have probably still went.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Because I'm like, if the universe wants me to be there, I will end up there. And it just turned out the universe did not want me to end up there. So when we rebooked our trip in 2022, I took the itinerary that the agency gave us, and I kind of like, we created it ourselves.
Well, they kept the deposit, so we kind of paid for that itinerary.
Yeah, we kept. Yeah, they kept a $1,000 deposit.
Crosses my mind that we could have tried to talk to our credit card company about that. Too late now.
Well, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
No, I guess no, I guess we were meant to. We were meant to have that interaction and pay our deposit.
I guess the COVID killed tourism everywhere, and so a whole lot of places were really, really struggling. So they probably needed a lot more than we do.
Oh yeah. I don't feel like it was it would hurt us, and it would probably help them a lot. Yeah, and when we went there in 2022, they were all the places we still stayed. In 22, not that many people were still traveling to Egypt. So, especially from the United States, there was not that many Americans there.
Yeah, not really.
Well, I think summer 22, most of the people in America were still kind of like iffy about traveling overboard, especially to, let's be honest, third worldish country like Egypt, right? But I think the rates were cheaper, so like that was great. And then I ended up crafting our own itinerary without any tour guides.
Yeah.
And so we kind of had this like
serendipitous
experience, yeah, to where we're just
we
ended up.
we would have never found the people we found
And stayed where we stayed.
and stayed where we stayed on that other tour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So it all worked out so well.
so I think we can spend hours and hours talking about it, but let's like hit the important things. I guess maybe let's rush through itinerary really quick. Like we flew into Cairo.
Yep.
We spent 2 or 3 days in Cairo. One of them we did the pyramids.
Pyramids, yeah. Well, we did the two big ones because the third one was closed. And in fact, in the Great Pyramid, the King's Chamber was the only thing open. Everything else was closed.
Well, I mean, everything else is the Queen's Chamber.
The Queen's Chamber and the Subterranean Chamber.
But I don't even know if they let people into Subterranean Chamber right now.
Either way, it's like, closed what? For renovation or something? I don't know. Whatever.
Well, I mean, I think it's opened ... depending on who comes in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, there's apparently if you just, pay even a nominal amount of, especially US dollars, that will open doors.
Yeah.
Literally and figuratively.
So Egypt is completely a bribery-based system. I'm reminded of Ukraine a lot back when I used to live there. Everything is bribed-oriented. So, meaning, I say bribe, but, lubricating the flow.
Yep.
And so everywhere we went, nothing was technically scheduled, but everybody would say, oh, hey, they kind of would imply like, oh, hey, if you give me money here and there, I can take you to all these secret places. And we were without a tour guide, so people would just like
become tour
guides for us, and like they have the keys. Literally, when we went to Karnak, the guy is like,
he's like this guy, and he just got a giant key ring, and it's like, are you the only guy with a key ring, or does everybody have a key ring?
I think he was the only guy with a key ring.
And there were these,
like past, like the temple is closed, like whatever. When you walk into the Karnak, and you have the pillars. This entire side was completely closed when we were there. I mean, some of it was closed, and bricked off.
Yeah.
And he takes us to these like behind the gates temples, and
on top of something we could like overlook the whole thing.
Yeah, but then he took us to that water well inside a building. Remember? The energy there was incredible. And then they have all the. I know we're getting like too excited about it all, but yeah. So one, I guess, money lubricates where you go and what you see, and I would say, like, I don't know how I would suggest this, but having very personal experience would be much better than joining a tour group, I think. What happened to us was just so amazing. And I think if we were around, even 5 or 6 or 10 or 20 or 30 other people, it would just be a completely different set of experiences.
Yeah.
So I'm glad it, obviously I was guided to Egypt for a very specific experience.
So Cairo was just insane as far as like the traffic and the population and everything. Just wild. But after Cairo, we flew down to Aswan. Luxor. We flew down to Luxor.
Which is the next city down. Next
big
city down on the Nile.
Right. And Luxor has Karnak and
Luxor
Temple. Also Valley of the Kings.
On the other side, yeah.
On the other side. And we stayed at a Airbnb.
Mm-hmm. No, we stayed at Airbnbs everywhere.
Oh yeah.
Our entire Egypt trip was Airbnb.
Cairo was like a apartment, but it was a
Airbnb
apartment, yeah. but it was a house in
Yeah.
in Luxor.
Nubian style house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a host and his wife together. They were the hosts, and we were saying, yeah, we're thinking about maybe going to Dendera, which is like an hour and a half drive back north. And he's like, oh, really? Because my wife is like an expert on Dendera and leads personal tours. And we're like, oh, really?
hmm
Let's make that happen. And so sure enough, we got a drive. It was us and the driver and the host's wife. We all drove up to Dendera, and she gave us the most intimate personal tour of Dendera.
I think it was like 3 or 4 hours.
Right.
If
And
not,
she got into places that we wouldn't have been able to get into because it's like closed off, but they just
Mhm.
know her.
Yeah.
Where's she from? Netherlands
Denmark.
or Denmark? Yeah. And I stand out like a sore thumb because I'm as white as you can get, but she's even whiter from Denmark.
Mhm.
Blonde hair, and no one's mistaking her for an Egyptian, to the point where like people who don't know, everybody knows her because she goes to Nadira like every week, but people who don't know her, it's like, and she's like, no, I'm literally an Egyptian citizen. Anyway, yeah, and we got all the behind the scenes in Dendera, which was incredible,
Mhm.
and it doesn't feel like. What's funny is how the temples just don't feel like each other. Some temples feel similar, but some are just like, the pyramids are like not like anything else. It's like, yeah, this is not a
A tomb.
tomb. It's like we went to a lot of tombs, and they all have a feel to them, and they all have writing on the walls for how to go to the next world and all this stuff. Yeah, that's not in the pyramids at all.
Well, no, when we went inside the pyramid, the Great Pyramid, I think it was very obvious that it was, to me, that it was a machine, that it was an energetic portal, if you want to say it. I say the reason why I say machine is because it had an energy of a working system. It still has a very active working system in it, and it's very obvious. Like if you, I think people who come there for a very specific reason, who know, would come there to work with that system. And so when you go inside the pyramid, if you're at all energy aware, it is very obvious that this is not a resting place of anybody because the system is still running, right? And if you're intuitive energetically, the system is running and it is an intense system. I don't know if you felt that way or not. It is a very, the energy behind the system is very strong. And if you are not sitting there allowing it, if you're not allowing to tune into it and then basically become in symbiosis with it, it is not a comfortable place to be.
Yeah, I didn't find it. The King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid was an uncomfortable place. I didn't like it,
Yeah, but it is
and I want
because we're not, we did not come there to work within that system.
as opposed to the whatever chamber of the second pyramid, which was incredibly peaceful.
hmm
It was like night and day.
Yeah. Well, the king's chamber is designed in such way that it is energetically pulling you into resonance with, so all the pyramids will pull you into the resonance with its intent. Like the system is designed there for you to become in resonance with that system. But depending on when you are on your developmental scale, or what is your goal whenever you walk in, right? If the resonance is just much higher than where you're comfortable being at rest, then it's almost like you're walking into what would be equivalent of that? I don't know, nothing comes to mind. But basically, it is the net value between your baseline frequency and the frequency of what the system is designed to do is so far in the gap that it is uncomfortable because the energy is too strong. That's what it comes down. And so if your energy is too strong and you're not meant to interact, or you're not coming there with the goal of interacting with this particular system, it does feel uncomfortable. It feels heavy. Like it is, you can't really spend too much time in it and then feel at ease. I'm not saying that, actually, from the human standpoint, I don't know if anybody will ever be at ease, because it's almost like you're required to surrender into the system. And then, of course, the surrender is, from Napoleon's story, is his out of body experience of reaching high, gamma ray frequencies. And then, you know, you're quite literally required to leave your body. You have to have an out of body experience in order to even continue to be comfortable there. So the reason why the second pyramid was so much more comfortable, because it was closer in resonance to where we were yet at that point, which is 2 years ago. And it was not pulling us away from the comfort zone, of our being.
Right, so we did Dendera, and then we drove down to Aswan, which is a long drive.
Through Edfu.
Through Edfu, yeah, we stopped at Edfu. Edfu is the male counterpart to Dendera. Dendera is for Hathor, and Edfu is Horus.
Yeah.
And they're very, very similar.
It's the same temple. Almost the same temple.
Almost the same temple. Dendera has the light bulb chamber.
Yeah.
Which is like a completely different style from anything else. It's like there's all this, hieroglyphics and stuff, all etched into the walls throughout the entire temple. And you get down, and you have to get down and crawl through this little thing to get in. It's not big to get into the light bulb area, and it's like, oh, this is a completely different artist done in a completely different style, and it looks modern. It looks like laser etched in.
Well, it looks more than modern.
Yeah, and it's like,
but can you tell that it's a different temple?
Yeah, it's like this is. I mean, it's at the bottom, so it's obviously first.
Yes, it's an older technology, older temple.
It is like all the symbology's different.
Yeah,
they're weird zigzags and what look like lightning bolts, and of course the light bulb, the famous light bulb. I'll put that up.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is this? Why is this here? This makes no sense in the context of the rest of the temple.
Yeah.
At all. I don't know that there's the same thing in Edfu.
But energetically, right, you can tell the difference between the light bulb area being a completely different resonance and space. Like it's a different temple, basically, than the rest of the Dendera temple. Can you feel that?
Yeah, it is completely different.
Yeah, and so you can tell that the origins of the Dendera temple are extremely ancient.
Right.
Extremely ancient. I would say
the Dendera temple is
hundreds of years old.
Is a Greek temple. It's built during the, when the Ptolemies ruled it. I don't know, maybe a couple hundred BC or maybe slightly AD.
Yeah.
And it's like, really? Because this, maybe the top part, I don't know. I'm not good at dating these things, but the bottom of it is just wild.
Yeah. And I think what happened, which was great, is because the Greeks, in fact, there was the ancient Dendera temple, which is where the light bulb is, right? And that was its own temple. Then the ancient Egyptians actually built a temple on top of that, which I don't know how much of it remains from the ancient Egyptian
reign. And it is like a temple complex. I mean, there's different areas.
Well, I'm just talking about even building on top, on top. And then, of course, the Greeks came in, keeping the ancient Egyptian structures, possibly adding on to it. So I don't know which parts of it were added on, and then, kind of working with it and through it. But I think in a way kind of help to preserve the ancient portion that is in the basement, I guess basement or whatever, in the that is in the crawl space.
That's one of the few sections that wasn't defaced, because I think
because it's preserved.
the Christians came in and they're like, oh, look at these icons of heathen gods. They just basically carved chiseled the faces off of.
Sometimes even the whole bodies.
I mean, you can still see the outline. You're like, okay, I can tell this was, Thoth or whoever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, which is just tragic. But what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I think they, partially is because I thought they looked at it as iconography, right? Like, oh, the existence of this being in this iconic form,
We don't
allows it to continue to exist. Therefore,
Yeah.
we need to destroy it.
Yeah.
And then somebody else mentioned to us that they also think it's an energetic interpretation. The existence of this iconography allows the energy to be amplified and be stronger, and then thus, threatening the existence of Christianity.
Yeah.
In competition, as if they're ever competing. But I think at the time that's what it was looked at. Just destruction of the not monotheistic, but was it
polytheistic?
Polytheistic religions were kind of like a step into killing of everything else, and in order to allow Christianity to flourish. Yeah. No, but what I want to point out is like the energy of entire Egypt, the ancient temples, is, yes, the history, it is incredible. But what I want to, I guess, say is that the energy that you can work with, ancient energy, I'm not even saying, 2700 BC, from if you allow that date to be the date of the pyramid, I'm talking about, 30,000 years old, 100,000 years old energy still alive.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't even talk about the Sphinx and the water erosion of the.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to get into the.
There's a link below if you want to read about that.
Yeah, as far as the date. So what we were mentioning is, or referring to, is that there's a modern science is in very much disagreement with ancient science. I say ancient, modern-ish day science on the dating of all of these buildings.
The conventional archaeology puts the Sphinx at, I don't know, 5,000 years ago or something, something around the time of the pyramids, which is also conventionally about 5,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But the Sphinx enclosure, the wall, the Sphinx is dug into the bedrock on the Giza Plateau, and so there's where the bedrock was, and then there's this huge area where it's dug out, and then the Sphinx is there in the middle of it. The enclosure, the walls of the enclosure are eroded in a way that is, I'm not a geologist, but is obviously water erosion. If you've ever seen like a
not
pile
a
of dirt,
water erosion, running down
water erosion.
Yeah, there's a difference. I think that's the big disagreement is the difference between, this area used to be flooded, so it eroded it this way. But the argument is, no, it's not up water erosion, it's down water erosion.
Water from rain, and a lot of rain over a long time.
Yeah.
Now, Egypt has a lot of things, but rain is not one of them. It is incredibly dry.
Yeah.
And so the last time it rained was during the Younger Dryas period. Was that 11,000 BC or 11,000 years ago?
Well, not last time it rained.
The last time there was enough rain to do this type of damage.
Yeah.
So that,
by default, just puts into that era.
Yeah. Dates the Sphinx to at least like 11,000 BC, which is like, wait a minute. Modern archaeology says, no, people weren't able to do this that long ago. Everyone was hunter-gatherers, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Now there's Göbekli Tepe, which is actually agreed upon, dated to like
12 or 11,
somewhere around that time period.
Okay.
This is all way off topic, but link in the description to read more. But it's I'm convinced that the Sphinx is much, much older, and I don't see any reason why the pyramids can't be contemporary with the Sphinx too.
Yeah, I think the pyramids are much, much older. I don't know about the Sphinx. I remember my lifetime there, and I remember the Nile being next to the pyramids.
Well, that's undisputed.
Yeah, but I remember that, and I'm trying to remember. I guess the Sphinx was so not important energetically at the time that I don't actually remember. Like, I cannot tell you if I remember it being there or not. I just remember it being significant if it was. And so what I can connect with is where the energetic influx is. And the energetic influx is the structures were there, but then there was a lot of supporting structures all around the pyramid. And so I spent a lot of time in the supporting structures around the pyramids, which now there's none. Like, you can see the remnants of some of the old temples that were around. But back then it was just like a whole complex around the pyramid.
The Greek scholar who wrote a lot of, all of the early accounts that we have about the pyramids and everything are from, I don't remember his name.
Eclipse?
Her-
Herodotus?
Her- Herodotus?
I don't know.
Uh, it's up there now. I think he famously has no mention of the Sphinx.
Yeah, and I don't remember it either.
It's I guess the Sphinx is impressive, but in its own right. But then it's standing next to 3 giant pyramids, which kind of draw the eye.
Yeah, and I want to say, like, if it was there, I would say, like, wouldn't I remember it? But I don't remember it.
But it was also
like, the
it was
river
also
flow-
buried under the sand at one point.
Yeah, no, but there was no sand. The soil was fertile. I mean, it was sandy, but it was fertile, especially next to the riverbank. To where there was a lot of reeds that were there. And yeah, like I think I would remember this ginormous thing, that most obviously doesn't even fit energetically with the pyramids. But no, and then, like, the pathways that led from the Nile to the pyramids and to the complexes that were around the pyramids, the soil was, there was a lot of, like, water ponds that came in. Um, yeah. So yeah, so it's question. I think the current, maybe this is kind of the summary of that, is the current dating of everything, and modern day archaeological interpretation of it is very
Dubious.
dubious, I guess.
Oh, another thing. The astrologically, the Sphinx is oriented to the rising of Leo the lion. Sphinx is a lion on the equinox,
I thought it was summer solstice or not.
or maybe it's the solstice, but whatever it is, of like 12,000 BC or something like that,
Oh, no,
or
but
10,000, whatever it is. It's a long time ago. It's not
yeah.
5,000 years.
Well, but no, based on Robert Duvall's theory, that the three pyramids are aligned up with the stars of the Orion's belt, right? Orion the hunter. And so the three pyramids, if you wanted them to match up to the Orion's belt and have the Sphinx to be facing, I guess, east on the summer solstice, it takes you back to 30,000 BC. Like, so just based, maybe, you know what, honestly, maybe Sphinx is actually even irrelevant here. Just to have these three pyramids face the coordinates of the Orion, which is what they are,
And
they're
Orion,
portals to the
Orion
Orion's belt.
is of course Osiris.
Yes, Orion is Osiris. That he, based on his calculation, swears that this is, obviously, I think he's intuitive and he's also remembering things, that this goes back to at least past 30,000 BC.
Right. And these are numbers that are just unbelievable to modern archaeology.
Yeah, but
so far out that like you can't even they can't even entertain the idea because it flies in the face of everything. You would literally have to rewrite the history books if this was true.
But that's the fight, is nobody wants to admit to being wrong.
Yeah.
And because the history books have to be rewritten. Same thing with Dendera. The light bulb Dendera is over 100,000 years old. I can tell you that for sure, if not 120. But nobody would ever admit to that, right? Nobody would ever admit to what that means, and everything that, imagine, like Christianity would be threatened just by the idea, of that.
Yeah.
Right. going back to Adam and Eve's story in the Bible from our last podcast, the original sin that is being identified as sin of Eve, right? Is the decision to propagate our existence into the space where we are closed off from greater knowledge. I mean, that's what that story is, right? And so for us to open up to greater knowledge right now, allowing the pyramids to be dated back to the truth, we're rewriting everything. We're rewriting our potentiality and existence as humanity.
Is it closed off to greater knowledge, or is it opened up to greater knowledge? Like
Which part?
her eating the fruit of the tree of knowledge gave, the story goes, gave her now she, after she eats it, now she has knowledge of good and evil. So she has gained knowledge by eating this. Or maybe it's gained a dualistic interpretation.
Yeah, I think that's the story, is that it is the decision to experience duality, right? And like I don't remember the exact story, right? But then they are naked, and then they have to put on clothes.
Yeah,
they have to clothe
they realize
themselves.
they're naked, and then they're ashamed about it.
Yeah, which is basically this disidentification with the essence of you, that is your higher self, that is the being of light,
and
thus the
more
fall from heaven.
identification with the body.
Yeah, your body becomes your, let's say, temple, but not in the good way, and then thus you lose the connection to the essence that is not blocked off as a container of self, to where the self is the essence, and then you are thus part of the essence. And then that the eating from the fruit of knowledge is being metaphorically explained as a separation from the greater knowledge, uninterrupted flow of knowledge, and thus containing it into the parameters of our human body existence. Right. But that is the same concept that would then translate it into Egypt, right? And then that openness that we would need to have in order to be able to admit to some wrong dating, right? And then what does that mean, right? It's not just about a date. What does that mean for us to
there's
have
a lot
that
of
date?
ramifications if that exists. Either people made it, if this is 30,000 years old, either people made it, which is like, wait, we got to rewrite the history books, or something other than people made it, which is like, wait, we really got to rewrite the history books. No matter, there's no conventional explanation for that.
Yeah,
that doesn't require a lot of books to be rewritten.
Yeah, but I think the point there is, if we're currently living in the fear of the unknown, as we are, right? That is the course of humanity right now, is to face the unknown and not be fearful of it. So if we're living in the fear of unknown, in order for us to start to rewrite the history books, but just on dates alone, but then everything else that comes away and along the way with that potential, means we have to face the fear and then shed the fear, right? And then, I will not get into conspiracy theory here, but who would benefit from that? Who would not benefit from that? And then two, the question, I guess, comes down to, even if you want to remove the larger global narrative, do we as an individual human beings want to be responsible for facing our fear in order to open up to the potential of knowing us? Just us, right? If we take away the conspiracy theories and agendas and all those stories, we technically have the right and the capability to make that choice ourselves without the fear. Why is that funny? Why is it so funny?
No, when you say it, like agendas and stuff, like, there's all kinds of ways that could go.
Yeah, but right, but the reason I say that, and the reason I'm so vague about it, is because, in fact, is the agendas and the stories and the conspiracies are in fact irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because the only thing they do is just
Distract.
and then they reinforce the fear that you already have within.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like from that standpoint, if we live in the life where we're going to give up on change and thus live, we could choose to live in darkness, but not because the darkness is being forced by the greater powers to be, whatever those powers are, real or not. That is an individualized choice, right? Does that make sense? I think
Yeah.
that's really important in this day and age right now. I know we're not on point of Egypt, but I think that is what the fall of humanity is. The Egypt that I remember was in the place where it was without that, we were open to the infinite flow of energy and thus interpretation of the entire existence as a whole. So I had a lifetime there as such. And then I remembered the lifetime where that ceased to be, where we went from everyone being able to interpret the infinite flow to the fall of humanity, let's just say, to where we became closed off and then the fear set in and then the power was giving away, as if we believed that it was somehow not ours to have. Right?
Yeah.
We perceived an idea.
We thought it was taken away, but it was really given away.
Yeah, we gave it, but given away in a sense, like I want to emphasize this. When you give it away, it is still your right to take it back. And then there's actually no fight. There's nothing required for you to take that power back. It is quite literally given away through a choice, like a simple like thought in your mind, like, oh, I'm just gonna give it to this dude. And then the same concept exists going, oh, I'll just have it back. Like there's no innate fight. There's nothing there that is just, I know people are going to go crazy on this because with us, we have identified this concept to be so out of our reach and impossible to where we have all these reasons why we're not powerful. And I'm not saying powerful from the point of suppression of others, just have our own innate power within us of self, of I.
Sovereignty.
Yeah, sovereignty of I. But so for me to say like, well, just decide to be sovereign, decide to have your own power within because you do. There's no such thing as giving it away. The choice is the choice in believing that you did. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
That it's very important that the choice is believing in the fact that you chose to not have it.
It's I don't know if it's subtle or if it's it's profound to realize that it's very important to realize that you have the amount of power that you think you have.
Yes.
If you think you have none, then you have none. And if you think you have power, then you do.
That is the choice within that you determined that the power was elsewhere.
Yeah.
And it was given away.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like so subtle within us. And it's overlooked from the other way of overlooked because we surrendered our sovereignty and our power to our fears.
Yeah. And and now this, this leader, this politician will protect us from our fears. So we'll give them the power. We'll give them our power to protect us.
But I know this is not where we thought the Egypt story would go, but the fall of Egypt is still the epitome and the reflection of the entire earth, right? What happened in Egypt when I would classify as fall of Egypt is the symptomatic
fall of like Pharaohic Egypt?
No, this is before that all that started happening. I know this is gonna get completely crazy, but
we still haven't got down to Aswan yet.
What? Oh, we haven't got to Aswan, right? This might be
that was the Aswan was the kind of the what the whole point.
Yeah, right. Maybe we'll have many episodes on Egypt, but what Egypt represents here on Earth in this plane of existence is the fall of humanity from the Garden of Eden that is described in the story of Adam and Eve. I know I'm kind of raise all kinds of concerns here because I'm quite literally questioning the Bible and the Word of God here. But that is what it is. So the story of Egypt. I'm not saying 5,000-year-old story of Egypt. I'm saying cumulative story of Egypt for over hundreds and hundreds of years.
Hundreds of thousands?
The what?
Hundreds of thousands?
Yes, hundreds of thousands of years is the description of the humanity's fall from heaven. Is that what the Adam and Eve story is? I don't actually know, but right, the fall of grace, and then thus living that life forward, right? But Egypt has the signatures of everything that is pre-fall and everything that is post-fall. And so the story of Earth right now is being propagated out of that, that's a conundrum, out of that truth.
Hmm.
And so it's kind of strange, but why a lot of energy workers are work on Egypt, why I came here reincarnated, basically not being able to separate myself in any way from Egypt, is because the beginning of that fall also has the awakening point into the next cycle, right? So Egypt kind of energetically holds all key to human awakening. Whole other story here. I'm not sure if that's the story we want to go after. Maybe we'll just talk about the first trip, and then we can talk about what rebirth of humanity looks like from the standpoint of Egypt. So, put a pin on that one. Where were we?
So, I think we probably summed up Dendera.
Yes.
And we go down to we drive down to Aswan.
We drive to Aswan through Edfu. And the crocodile temple, Como Umdo. Yeah. Which I will say this, and this is kind of like a three-dimensional human interpretation of it. Summertime in Egypt is rough.
It's rough, especially we got two kids who have seen a lot of temples already.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see the next temple.
Yeah. So it was at some point you kind of have to pick and choose your battles. In our case, considering we are two adults who are interested in this, but we have two little children who are, obviously overheating and
cranky.
And so a lot of our trips kind of being driven around like mitigating crankiness.
Yeah.
As we have one coming up.
We were pretty quick through Como.
Yeah, that was, I think they had like a whole section of it that we didn't even make it to because it was really, really hot.
That's the one that is it the first recorded medical procedure?
Mm-hmm. A lot of the walls there.
Yeah. We didn't, I don't know. If we saw it, I didn't recognize it.
Yeah, no, I mean, each temple, and of course, the temple of Hatshepsut, is magical.
Oh yeah,
and the Valley of the Kings,
Valley of the Kings, yeah,
is magical. So but those, like Valley of the Kings, are very obviously tombs. You can feel the energy. When you go to a cemetery in the United States or any other country, you if you're intuitive at all, I mean, I don't think you have to be intuitive. You can kind of feel the energy of what it feels like to be.
And they found bodies, mummified bodies. Though this is Tutankhamun. This is whatever. It's okay. No. I don't think there's any debate that those are tombs because we found bodies there.
Yeah. So when you walk into the Valley of the Kings, you can tell that these are burial grounds.
Yeah.
Like the Hatshepsut Temple is a crossover between the burial ground and the ceremonial place. So that one has a lot
that one's wild. I mean, it looks like a Bond villain lair.
Yeah, but energetically, it has a little bit of burial ground, but I don't actually think the entire temple itself is meant for that. I think it is a ceremonial interpretation of something. I can guess what something is. Like, honestly, we can have like an episode on each temple. That might be a very interesting take on it.
Short episodes, maybe. I don't know.
Short episode.
I don't know. We could do an
Really?
hour and a half on each.
I could.
Oh.
I could just go through each temple and tell you exactly what they were.
Anyway, so we get down to Aswan.
Yeah. Wait. Yes, we get down to Aswan by driving there.
By driving there.
Mm-hmm.
But our Airbnb is a boat.
A floating boat.
Floating boat, as they tend to do. But it's permanently docked to Elephantine Island, which is this island that I had never heard of in the middle of the Nile. So we got to like take a little motorboat out to get there. Okay, and it's it's nice. It's a probably sleeps 15 people probably.
It has like 3 bedrooms,
3 or 4 bedrooms,
3 bathrooms,
kitchen, everything.
Wait, 4 bathrooms. It has a nice like living space and kitchen. It's amazing. It has an amazing deck.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the upper canopy, like if you
and it's overlooking the western bank, so it's on the western side of the island. So islands here. Then there's a boat, and then there's the western half of the Nile, and then there's the western half of the western
Nubian
bank.
Desert.
Yeah, Nubian Desert, and up there is the mausoleum of.
I'll never remember that. But I mean, we're facing the sunset. Sunset is kind of like that way and slightly to the south.
I want to say Khan, but
it wasn't. Serendipitous again. We end up in the. It was just magical. Just being on the Nile and seeing the sunset.
Yeah.
For those 3 nights, I guess I saw him for 2 nights. I guess I was kind of awake one of the nights.
Anyway, so this island is. Most of this island is incredibly impoverished.
All of it. I guess the northern part of it has resorts.
We never made it there, but there are resorts up there.
Yeah.
But also on the southeastern tip is a little temple complex or ruins, really, which we explored at night, which were just incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And we could do an episode about that and the portal and everything.
Yeah.
But where I wanted to go was one night, one day, whole day, you were dying.
Well, no, the day before part of the Egyptian history is they dammed off the Nile in the south, right, towards Sudan's area, right, like as if you're coming from Sudan, and then they dammed it off there somewhere. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's right. It's just south of Aswan, the Aswan.
Yeah, so the dam, but creation of this dam caused the flooding of more ancient temples. There are it's not. We were in Aswan. Where were they? Abu Simbel temples. And so they took the temples.
UNESCO, I think.
Yeah, UNESCO took these temples,
disassembled
them, yeah,
and reassembled them up above where the water line was going to be.
Yeah,
which which is insane because it's like carved into the mountain.
Yeah.
So you had to excavate this. I mean, it must have cost. I can't even imagine how much money that cost to do.
Yeah.
Move it up and reassemble it. Basically, make an artificial mountain hill and
insert the temples.
It goes into it. It is insane that is a thing that can be done and that they did it.
Yeah.
Because it would have been lost under this lake.
And some of them were.
Some of them were, yeah.
Yeah. So if you could flash the
I don't remember this lake, but there was the Egyptian named after an Egyptian president a couple presidents ago.
Yeah.
And it's a super contentious. It's like on one hand, yes, now they have this lake and there's this, opportunity for fishing and, water and, hydroelectric power. All good things. On the other hand, I think a lot of, I don't know, tribes or groups of people were just like, hey, this is going to be underwater here soon, so you probably should go somewhere else.
Yeah. Well,
Too bad.
And there are some temples that were lost.
And the temples.
They are still, you still hear on the news every so often them
scuba diving down there?
Scuba diving and bringing up ancient statues and things like that.
Yeah. So it's a super contentious issue.
Yeah, but I would say energetically, there are these 2 very large, and I'm trying to remember what the temple are. One is to Ramses, right? Ramses II. the one with the two the four sitting
Statues,
statues, right? That's
giant statues.
Ramses, right? And the other one, I was to his wife, right? But they were in the separate places. They were not like next to each other. But in this case, just the way they constructed them, right off the Nile, right? So like a lot of the Nile cruises is either start there or end here. But for us, it was a 3-hour drive from Aswan to Abu Simbel
Through the desert.
through the desert.
And
yeah.
this is like, oh, okay, that's a mirage. Now we can see a mirage. It looks like that rock is floating. It looks like it's kind of, I could see how that looks like water. It
Mhm.
was, ooh,
Yeah, it was rough. And so it was 3 hours there, 3 hours back. And then while we were there, it was hot. And it was incredible. Like you could feel what the energy remnants was,
right?
but you can also feel that it was not in the right place. And so it did not have the essence of
Yeah.
its origin there.
It's the best they could do.
Yeah.
I'm glad they did it. I really am.
No, I'm glad they did it.
Because it would have been
it's
terrible
good to
for
see.
that to be lost. Because that's one of the iconic
Shots of Egypt.
Is Abu Simbel and these four giant, there's the picture.
Yeah. Yeah, but from energetic standpoint of interpretation,
I had no idea that used to be like 100 feet lower, and it would have now been underwater. I had no idea.
yeah. And we didn't go to Fale Temple, because so we come back from Abu Simbel, drive back to Aswan.
Aiden's got heat stroke or something.
Yeah, he has heat stroke. So, but he was fine the next day.
He was fine the next day, but you weren't.
Yeah, and I weren't. And so, in the previous episode, we touched on dying. And I knew that I needed to come for Egypt for a specific reason. And I think in this case, I just needed to come there to die. And so I took, I think it was the 19th of June, which is the day before the summer solstice. Obviously, everything lines up perfectly. I I guess spent that day dying on the Nile as we were bobbing on the Nile.
Right. I mean, the boat was pretty calm. It's docked off an island. It's a good sized boat, and there's not a lot of
The
traffic.
and the current is not strong.
Yeah, it's
I
not.
say we're
It's not
bobbing.
it's not like a.
Yeah,
you're
there was no
rocking a lot.
motion sickness
Yeah.
or anything like that. But it was my first death, and so I was confused of what was happening.
I was confused as to what was happening.
But I was very aware of the fact that I was dying. Like I went, and at the same time, I'm literally in Egypt, and the Elephant Island is just magical.
Right.
I'm remembering my life, the one life that I needed to let go from the density standpoint, as I'm dying on the Egypt, and it was very obvious to me. I'm like, because I at the same time I was concerned. I'm like, okay, what's happening to me? And I reach out. Usually, whenever I'm concerned, I go inside and I kind of reach out for greater knowledge. And I ask, I'm like, okay, can you explain to me what's happening? And they're like, yeah, this is how dying looks like. And I'm like, oh, okay. And there was this interesting surrender into death, like welcoming death.
Yeah, I was really concerned. I was seriously concerned for your well-being.
Yeah, well, I wasn't. I knew it was a metaphorical death. But at the same time, because I did not know what dying metaphorically meant, like what energetic death meant, I was okay. It was physical dying. It was just whenever you're in that point of surrender into metaphorical, there's not much difference between surrender into metaphorical versus literal. And you become at peace. And I was a total peace that whatever will be, will be. And it was just so beautiful. It was so painful, but it was so beautiful to just die on the Nile.
Death on the Nile.
Right. Yeah.
Fun fact. Legend has it that the Ark of the Covenant was held on Elephantine Island for a couple 400 years.
Mm-hmm.
And the temple complex, the ruins of the temple complex, if you look at it, everything is like exploded out from this one central thing, which is like the only thing still standing. Like everything's knocked. These multi-ton stones are just knocked out from this one area, as if there was an explosion there.
Yeah.
Which is, there's all kinds of theories. Is it a Stargate portal? Was it some sort of energy explosion, Ark of the Covenant thing? I don't know, but it's
Yeah,
something.
I think when they say the Ark of the Covenant was held there, it might have been there as a passing, like it passed through there. But I think it was held there through the portal. Like that is my theory, is that it was held there in the sense that there was the portal in which it was held in.
Like stick it in the portal and it goes somewhere else.
I say
So the
somewhere
portal's
else.
there.
I mean, somewhere else is very nebulous
right.
definition here. But so yeah, there. How about this? It was accessible from there. I think that is a more accurate description. It was held there is wrong. It was accessible through there. And so a lot of people theorize that the explosion was part of the one, possibly destruction of the Stargate in order to eliminate this accessibility, or to cut off the access to the Ark. I will say this, people say Ark of the Covenant, but we have heard many, many theories that there are multiple Arks of the Covenant. They're just machines. Yeah, so theory one is the explosion of the Stargate is to cut off accessibility to this particular Ark. Or theory two is the extraction of the Ark and then the shuffle that happened during that seizing caused the explosion. So I'm thinking the latter one might be more accurate. And so the entire temple is completely destroyed. You can tell from a very visceral experience, energetic experience.
Yeah.
And we were, I think at night when the sun goes down, the temperatures drop. And so we kind of went exploring one night. I'm like, oh, why not just go exploring?
Which kind of, did we go in the front gate? I don't even know how we got in.
Well, it's a closed. Yeah, it's closed off the gate, but the gate kind of stays open. But I think they're still doing some archaeological digging there, because like the little guard area is still there, like the shed. And so I think they were just closing up because they closed at sundown. But we just kind of went in.
Yeah.
And then literally explored it at night, which I'm assuming is probably not allowed, but nobody stopped us. With flashlights.
Yeah. Bring a flashlight to Egypt. Pro tip.
Yeah. And it was very obvious that some stuff went down there. And then of course later I remembered a life on the island. The lifetime which I released while dying on the island on that day was a different lifetime that I remember passing the island, because they held a huge significance. But now that I realize it, it's probably due to the portal that is there. And then I remembered a different lifetime later, where I was a child on the island and actually lived on the island. No, I was a child on the island and I would come to the island. And I remembered that lifetime as well. But yeah, I mean, just what I want to say is, I think you can have like 3 different trips to Egypt. You can have a trip to Egypt where you look at the modern day Egypt and marvel at everything that is left. You can have a trip to Egypt where you go there and you dive into the depth of the history that is the written history, right, from the archaeological standpoint of modern day belief. Or you can have a trip to Egypt where you go into the energetic interpretation of what was and then quite obviously what still is.
Yeah.
And those could be 3 different trips, right? I'm not saying you cannot mix and match.
Yeah.
But it's almost weird to be able to assess it from 3 different standpoints, because when you go to Cairo, and especially if you go to like modern day area and then they have bars and McDonald's and sushi places, right? And it's like it's just so strange.
Right.
I say strange, but that is quite literally just an interpretation of a modern day Earth.
Right.
But
I mean, it's. I mean, there are parts in it other than the fact that it's hot during the day. It could just as easily be New York or San Francisco or LA or London or something. Other than the language people are speaking, it's parts of it are indistinguishable from. You could be plopped there and take a blindfold off. What city am I in? I don't know. Other than the signs are in Arabic.
Yeah, it was not dissimilar from Turkey.
Yeah,
I would say there were some similarities there. The mosques are there.
Yeah.
The traffic was different than Turkey.
Traffic was crazy.
That is probably like the most shocking thing that the tourist will notice is what it means to drive in Egypt. They use their car horns as turn signals.
Yeah. Well, not just turn signals. It's like a hello,
All
it's
gestures.
a goodbye, it's an FU, it's I'm making a left, I'm making a right, I'm going to go, you need to stop. All of that is
All
conveyed with
communication is car
and it's
horn.
like where we live, people don't honk their horn. It's like almost a slap in the face to be honked at or to honk at somebody. And so it just doesn't happen. It's incredible. I mean, I will go weeks, if not months, between hearing a car horn honk at anybody, let alone myself. In New York, they'll honk a horn a lot.
Yes, but yesterday when we were walking, the neighbor honked a horn in a rude kind of way.
Yeah.
Or at least I interpreted it in the rude way.
Yeah. Well, the person was kind of blocking the road too.
Yeah, but that was a shock.
It was a shock. It was like,
and now that we have our new car, I didn't even know how to use the horn.
But in New York, they'll honk a horn. But in New York people are a bit more. I don't know if aggressive is the right word, impatient's the right word. But in Egypt, everybody is honking all the time. All the time. I am not exaggerating. Everybody is
but it's
always
not like
honking.
It's like
it's like beep, 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 beep. It's just a sea of honks, especially like the busy, it's what would be in the United States, it would be like 3 or 4 lanes, but there it's just however many cars happen to fit lanes. So it'll be 8 cars wide, with like 6 inches between the cars, and they're all trying to get ahead of it. It is insane. It is absolute chaos, but it works somehow. There's no stop signs, there's no stoplights, and even if there were, nobody would obey them.
They obey stoplights a little bit, but they're angry about it.
It's just kind of like, if you can go, you go.
Yeah.
And even if you can't go, you try to go.
Yeah.
All the cars are completely beat up because everybody's wrecking into everybody all the time.
The first Airbnb we stayed in was in old Cairo. And the second one we stayed in Cairo was in like the newer area of Cairo. Like a lot of embassies were there. So the traffic wasn't the same way there. But the old Cairo has all these, it's almost like Champs-Élysées of Egypt, of these rows of shops, right? But so it's very touristy. I say touristy. It's very crowded, and some tourists, and then of course a lot of locals, because the locals just go shopping there as well. But there's no, if there is crosswalks or crossing lights.
No, that doesn't everyone work for themselves.
Yeah, and so to cross a road as a pedestrian in Egypt is a little nerve-wracking. But I guess with me, I grew up in Ukraine, so crossing a road is, you kind of like make my way through.
Hold on to your kid and don't let go, and run you almost get out a quote lane and then another lane and then another lane.
Yeah, and you almost fighting against the car that is most obviously trying to run over you.
Yeah.
And they think they have the right of way, and then they obviously don't want to run over you, but at the same time, you kind of have to have some guts to get out.
Right. Oh, yeah. Over here, the pedestrians always have the right of way. It's just like rule 1 of driving a car. The pedestrians always have the right of way. Doesn't matter if they're jaywalking. Doesn't matter if they're laying in the street. Pedestrians always have the right of way. Not so much over there.
No, in Ukraine, I think maybe that was the rule. But if I'm walking and let's say the street lines are not there and the crosswalks are not there. There's a car coming. There's multiple times where they're coming and they do not want to change the speed at which they're coming, and they'll be honking to like basically
Don't
no cause you to either don't
or
or
hurry.
have you run. Like I remember many instances like that. They're like they do not want to be inconvenienced by my crossing, and so they start honking way ahead
Yeah.
to let you know, like, oh, guess what? I'm not playing this game type of thing. And so it's either if you're already in the middle, you run forward,
Yeah.
or you just don't get out.
Or where we live, it's like it's shocking when someone doesn't slow down for a pedestrian because we have to cross the street to a reasonably busy street to get to the schools, and it's like most people will, flash their lights, which is the universal symbol for please go ahead. But sometimes it's like,
Well, the kids, the kids who drive to high school are young and they
yeah,
don't understand pedestrian walking.
yeah,
It's kind of strange. But no, that was the shocking part about Egypt.
yeah. I'm gonna embed a clip of that little video right here about the that shows the chaos of the roads.
Did we record that?
No, it was someone else's YouTube video.
Oh, okay.
They'll have credit in the link below.
Yeah, that was interesting. But I guess with me, it wasn't dissimilar to Ukraine. So it was nerve-wracking a little bit, just because in Ukraine, you at least have space. But here is no space. You kind of have to squeeze them between the cars to cross, and then you have to fight them. And, and then with me, I'm very vocal. So anytime I feel like I'm doing something, I'm like squealing and squeaking, and I'm running and squeaking at the same time. But that was just a way of me expressing my discomfort. So I don't think that was documented, thankfully. I remember a lot of like, but yeah. So no, it's
Die in Egypt, but just not from a car.
right. No, yeah. One night, whenever we were staying at the Nubian house, when we went to the Dendera and Valley of the Kings, they had a pool, which was amazing. I'm trying to think where I was going with this thought. Oh, at night they took us on the dinner on the boat on the Nile, and then we got to swim in the Nile
And you saw
at night.
Yeah, and you saw a shooting star. First shooting star.
Yeah, it was the first shooting star that I can remember. Surely I saw first shooting stars, but I don't remember it. But yeah, I was just floating in the Nile, and I saw a shooting star, which was super magical. I think if with us, we were trying to cram in so many temples in our 10-day trip that it was a lot. And then I think, just like
a lot.
That desire to see and to
there's
experience.
A fear of missing out. When am I ever going to be back to Egypt? Maybe never. And if I don't see it now, I'll never see it. But even at the end, I was getting a bit templed out too.
I didn't have the fear of missing out. I just kind of had this rough itinerary of like, okay, well, honestly, I took the itinerary that we got in 2020 and I was trying to kind of match it and just kind of tailor it to us, how it would fit. And then the day that we were dying, or I was dying, we skipped that whole itinerary because we were supposed to visit the Nubian village, which is supposed to be beautiful. And then we're supposed to go to Philae Temple and then the unfinished obelisk, which is all in Aswan. Like, the Nubian village is
on the western side.
On the western side, which is where our boat would be. So we were kind of looking towards the direction of it, but it was kind of over the hills. And the Philae Temple was just like an hour away, or maybe even 30 minutes away from where we were staying, but on land, through land. I think it's on a little island somewhere, if I'm correct. But might have been also moved. That was another thing. I think it might have been moved for the convenience of the cruise boats. And then the other thing, there was the unfinished obelisk, which we drove by it and we saw it and it was ginormous. But we never got a chance to explore it just because that day, I guess while I was dying, you guys could have went out and explored. I felt bad, but I think the kids were just happy to have a break.
Yeah. We went out and we found a pizza restaurant on the island. We walked over there and ordered 4 pizzas, and they were okay. I guess. They weren't that great.
They were like $1 a piece
They
or
were like
something?
$1. Yeah, they were like, I'm like, how big are the pizzas? And he's like, eh. They ended up being bigger than that, and they were like $1 a piece. And I'm like, 4. And he's like, 4. I'm like, yeah. On the island, everything was incredibly cheap.
Yeah. It was very cheap. It was
Like
very poor island.
a 2 liter of what was that soda? Some Schweppes.
Oh, yeah, they have the
So
best
they have
Schweppes.
best. Every country has its own special Schweppes flavors. Egypt
Mhm.
has a lime,
Lemon maybe?
lime something. Really good. Well, like 25 cents for a 2 liter of it. I'm like, what? Oh,
Yeah.
so good.
But, the cost of living on the
Cost of
island
living, yeah, on the
is
island, it would be
yeah.
really, really cheap.
And, of course, a lot of houses don't have plumbing there. We had the boat that we stayed on had a little captain quarters, let's say, where the guard for the boat slept on. Like he had his little separate quarters on the outside.
Mhm.
So, you would say like, oh, okay, well, it's a very poor island. Did you feel not safe? But like his whole job was to
Yeah.
like
And it's,
guard
and
us
and
and
the doors
whatnot.
are locked to the boat and everything.
Yeah,
But
but he has the key.
yeah, but I mean, like, there's a door to the boat, and then there's another door to the bedroom.
Oh yeah, yeah, everything does lock. Yeah, but I didn't feel unsafe.
I didn't
Like
feel
I
unsafe.
never felt unsafe. In fact, we went to the pyramids one day, but then the next day we went to the Saqqara step pyramid. Do you remember?
Mhm.
And then afterwards we had the
Walk through the
well, no, we had a plan to go to Memphis to see their pyramid there. Um, but we never made it there because like we couldn't get an Uber to pick us up at the Saqqara.
yeah,
Maybe it was our fault.
I don't know. Maybe.
Uh, but yeah, so the way the Egyptian taxis work is, I think for the most part, each transportation system has its own little area, right? And so like the rickshaws go here, but then like the taxi could technically go there. But if you wanted just like a regular accessible place, like here's the rickshaw place. And then from the rickshaw we had to get to the bus place.
And the bus.
And the bus took us to the taxi.
Yeah.
Or Uber or taxi or whatever.
Yeah.
And then only then when we got into the proper
Yeah.
Cairo, we were able to get an Uber.
Yeah, we took an Uber to Saqqara, but we couldn't get an Uber back.
Yeah.
Which is, it was like,
so yeah,
weird.
maybe that was something that I wish we accommodated for. It was like making accommodations to have a car stay with us.
Yeah. That would have been smart.
Unless we mess up the Uber somehow. I don't know.
Yeah. I think I had my geolocation off and I didn't even realize it. And so nobody could find us. I'm like, well, we're right here. Can I go there? But of course, it's going through a translation. I'm typing in English and it's translating to Arabic and they're replying in Arabic and it's translating to English. And
yeah.
I don't
and
know.
we were also on the other, like on the guards gate. So we thought, okay, well, maybe if we walk from the Saqqara temple complex
Right.
past the guard gate.
Right. Which we could do the long way down the road or the short way through the desert.
So we got to
we went through the desert.
Yeah, we hiked through the desert. And then after that we couldn't get an Uber still. So we actually had to hike this long road into the city. But then we realized, we can just get a rickshaw.
Yeah.
And so we got a little rickshaw. And then from that we got a
bus,
which
was like $1 a piece or something.
Can you put can you put a video of the little bus ride?
Yeah, if I can find it, yeah.
It was just a tiny little thing. And we're the only Americans there.
Yeah, thank goodness someone in their bus spoke English because
most of the people, like the guy who told us that we needed to get a rickshaw because the taxis don't come here, took pity on us because he saw us just hiking down this,
yeah, we're like, well,
highway.
Cairo's this way. It's like 10 miles this way, but we'll just start going because
no, I don't think
nobody's
10
coming.
miles. Oh yeah, an overall 10 miles.
Yeah.
But he said, oh yeah, taxis don't come here. Get a rickshaw, then go to the bus.
The bus will take you to
Giza. And then
Giza. From there, you're basically in Cairo.
Yeah. Which was, honestly, was an experience within itself. Just to experience that real Egypt,
The bus is like we're gonna. I mean, it's just a little bus, and it's like
It's
we're gonna fill it up as many people as we can get in it,
It's
and
not
then we
even
go.
it's not a bus. It's one of those like small transit vans.
Yeah, almost like an airport shuttle.
Yeah. And so it's a one place where they all stop, and then they just sit there until they all fill up.
Yeah, because if you leave with empty seats, you're leaving money on the table.
Yeah. So they just sit there. I'm like, what time does it go? He goes, I don't know.
When
And
it's
we're
full.
like, what do you mean? Well, you don't know. They're like, whenever it's full. We're like, oh, okay. So somebody had to reshuffle in order to accommodate the four of us sitting in the back all together.
Yeah.
And there was probably like 20, 30-minute drive
Yeah.
into Cairo.
And the driver was going to keep all of our money, but the kind soul ahead of us who spoke English was like, wait, how much did you get him? Oh, yeah, he owes you change. And then
Yeah. Because we weren't gonna.
I don't know.
Yeah. So the people will rip you off if you don't acknowledge or negotiate, or
Yeah.
that's just kind of like the tendency of the country. It reminds me of Ukraine a lot because everyone is poor and scrappy, and so like the rules of integrity get bent based on everybody's pain body of. Do we need to finish up?
I don't know. Time's up.
Oh, okay, we can finish up. We can always do another Egypt if we wanted to. So highly recommend.
Highly recommend.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Thanks.